In the last session, we just discussed about cloud different options and what does that mean by instance and how to create the user and what are the basic roles we have to assign to the user so that the user can have access to FSM and security console to perform the setups and to create and manage the users and roles. The user, whatever we created in the last session, that user we call as implementation user. Implementation user. The user which we are going to use for implementation purpose, the user we call as implementation user. In other words, you can say the user whatever we are creating from security console. Okay. Whatever the user we are creating from security console, that user we call as implementation user. So implementation user means the user whatever you are creating from security console, by providing the access to these two roles, that user you can call as a implementation user. We have different type of users. Okay, we have different type of users. We will understand. Okay, we'll understand whenever that is required. For now, not required for us. Just remember how to create a user or what roles need to be assigned. Whatever the user we created and from security console, that user we are calling as implementation user. That's all. These points we have to note. Now let's talk about FSM, functional setup manager. Okay, let's talk about functional setup manager. So what is the purpose of functional setup manager? Already discussed. By using FSM, you can do the setups or you can call it configuration. Say you want to implement financials applications or you want to implement SCM, supply chain management applications, or HCM, or take any application. If you want to implement that, you can do from FSM only. Okay, FSM is centralized environment to do the any application related setups. Okay, to do any application related setups, we use FSM, functional setup manager. So when we do the setups within the FSM, you can manage those setups with a concept called as implementation project. Say you are doing the implementation for one of the client. The client is operating the business in 10 countries. You are going to do the implementation for 10 countries business operations. For each country, you can create the separate implementation project. So country specific setups you can complete within the implementation project. Okay. So within the implementation project. After creating implementation project, okay, to perform the setups, I want to do the finance setups. To do the finance setups, I have to create an implementation project. Within the implementation project, I have to select financials. Okay, I have to select financials. Here we discussed we have a different product families, right? Financials, supply chain, or you can call it supply chain management. Okay, financial, supply chain management, HCM, PPM, the same way procurement. Okay, this is how we have a different product families. When we deal with these different product families in FSM, those are all we call as offerings. So we have financials, one product family, okay, and procurement. So set of applications we call as specific product family, and SCM, supply chain management, and HCM, human capital management, and PPM, project portfolio management. This is how we have a different product families. These different product families, as per FSM, we call as offerings. That means Oracle is offering financial solution, Oracle is offering procurement solution, Oracle is offering SCM, HCM, PPM solutions. So since the solutions are offered by Oracle, these all we call as offerings. Okay, financials we call as offering. Same way, procurement we call as offering. SCM we call as offering. HCM we call as offering. PPM we call as offering. Okay, so these all we call as a offerings. So as per functional setup manager, this is the naming convention we have to use. Financials we are calling as offering. Within the financials, we have a different applications. Okay. Within the financials, we have a different applications. Say payables we have receivables, we have assets, we have a cash related application. The exact names we will come to know very soon. Okay. The exact names we have a 2 cycles. Once we discuss the names, we can understand. For now, you take these names. Within the financials, we have a different applications. Payables, receivables, assets, cash, or cash management you can call. So the financials we are calling as offering. Within that financials, what are the applications we have? Those all we can call as options. Okay, options. These all we call as options. So this is the terminology we have to understand. Okay, offerings and options. Offering is nothing but specific product family. Within the specific product family, what are the applications we have? Those we call as options. Okay, let's take those names. Later anyway, we will discuss more detail level. As a part of financials, what are the different applications we have at core? We'll just look into that. When you talk about financials, what are the core applications we have? Say Oracle, Fusion, accounts payable, Oracle, Fusion, account receivable, Oracle, Fusion, fixed assets application, Oracle, Fusion, cash management application, Oracle, Fusion, general ledger application. Okay, we'll discuss very detailed level. Maybe after two or three sessions, we have a topic where we will understand more detailed level. What does it mean by it? What we'll do exactly in each and every application. For now, just take the names. Make a note and remember. As a part of financials, we have these applications as a core application. These we call as core financial applications. So financials we are calling as an option. Within that, what are the applications? That means these applications we call as options. Okay, financials we are calling as offering. The applications, whatever we have in the financial, those we call as options. The same way, procurement is offering. Within the procurement, we have a set of applications, all we call as offering. SME is offering. Within that, whatever the different applications we have, all we call as options. In HCM also, we have a different offerings. Okay, and it's HCM also one of the offering. Within that, we have a different applications. All we call as a options. This is for each product family. What are the list of applications we have? Those we are calling as options. The product family itself we are calling as a offering. Just remember this terminology. Offering means the product family name. Option mean within the specific product family, what are the applications we have? Each application we call as a separate option. And when we talk about financials, these are the core applications we have as a part of financials. Okay, just make a note of these few points. Okay, just make a note of these few points. You will understand based on that. Okay, so by using FSM, functional setup manager, we can do the setups. Say you are going to implement financials. So if you are going to implement financials, within the financials we have these different applications. So I want to implement payables, I want to implement receivables, I want to implement fixed assets. What are the application I want to implement? We can implement with the help of FSM only. Through FSM only we can do any setup. So whenever we do the setups in the FSM, to manage the setup data in more organized way, what we have to do is we have to create the implementation project. Okay, we have to create the implementation project. Create implementation project. Okay, first we have to create implementation project. After creating the implementation project, we have to select which offerings and which options we want to implement. Okay, we have to create implementation project means we give this some name. So through that what is the purpose of implementation project? To perform the setups. To do the setups in the system, we have to create implementation project. Okay. You created implementation project for what purpose? To implement financials. That means you have to select financials offering into implementation project. When you select financials, you can select within the financials all the applications or very selected applications also. That means when you create implementation project, we have to select required offering and required options into that implementation project based on the scope of implementation. What exactly you are going to implement, those all you have to select. Those could be offerings or inside of offering the options. Okay, we have to select offerings and options. We create implementation project. Why we are creating? To do the setups. Which setups we have to do? Those offerings and options we have to select. Okay. You want to select offerings and options. If you want to select offerings and options, so first you have to enable those. You have to activate them. So these are the offerings we have. For each offering we'll have a different options. Now we want to implement financials. We created implementation project. Now I want to select financials into this implementation project. Directly we cannot select. If I want to select financials into any implementation project, first this financials offering need to be enabled. Within the financials, I want to select only these 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever you want to select. If you want to select, those need to be enabled. Okay. The offerings and options first we have to enable in instance so that you will be able to select the same into implementation project so that you can perform the setup. The very first step in every fresh instance is when we are working for any client, the very first step is you will get user credentials from the client or say from Oracle. With that you can log in. Once you log in, if you want to create your own user, how to create, already we have seen in the last session. Once you are ready with your own user, what we have to do is in FSM, you have to enable the offerings and options. Enable offerings and options. Okay. So enable offerings and options. Which offerings and options we have to enable? You are going to implement what offerings and which options for your client accordingly you have to enable. Say in your project you are going to enable these three, you are going to implement these 3 offerings. So enable these 3 offerings, and within these offerings exactly which options you are going to implement, those we have to enable. This is the first step. The second step is you can create implementation project. Second step is you can create implementation project. After creating implementation project, why you created implementation project? To do the implementation. Which offerings and which options you want to implement, those we have to select into that. Okay, you have to select into that. After selecting, you can start doing the setups. Okay, you can start doing the setups. Along with that if you want to do some assignments, status, etc., you can do that. That we will see directly in the system. Okay. So simply you can say you can do the setups. You can do the configuration. Okay. There are a few other points also we'll discuss. So in a very fresh instance, when you get access to fresh instance, you can create your own user. From that user, you can just go and enable offerings and options for the first time. Only one time we have to do this for every instance. And we have to create implementation project. Okay, why we are creating implementation project? To do the setups. We want to do the setup for which offerings and options. Accordingly, how to select those offerings and options into implementation project. Then you can start doing the setups. How many implementation projects we have to create? When you do the implementation, how many implementation projects we have to create? Ideally, one is enough. So you are going to implement for one of your US clients. You are going to do the implementation for US client. That means for US business, you have to do the setups. Then you can create one implementation project for US. You are going to do the implementation for India also. Yes. If you want to create separate project for India, you can create one more implementation project for India. So from that project, you can do the setups. Or else for India and US, you can create single project. From single project, you can do the setups for India and US or for multiple countries also. From single implementation project, you can do the setups for multiple countries also possible. Or else for your convenience, okay, for your convenience, the setups convenience, you can create country specific implementation projects. Each country you can create a separate implementation project. This is also possible. I think this is how we do. Okay, country wise we create separate implementation project so that easily you can do the setups and you can manage the setup data. So this is what we have to do. Here what we have to understand is implementation project for the purpose of doing the setups. Don't think the bigger way. Okay, interacting with the customer, taking their business requirement and documenting and doing many other activities. We are not talking about project lifecycle management or project execution management. Okay, it's nothing. Here, whatever we are discussing as a implementation project in Fusion, whatever we create the implementation project, purpose is to complete the setups. This you cannot relate with anything else. No need to relate with anything. So it's a very simple, straightforward point is we create implementation project in the Fusion applications to complete the setups and to manage the same setup. That's all. Okay. So any questions on these points, please? If you have any questions, we'll discuss. Otherwise, directly we'll go and see in the system how to enable offerings and options, how to create implementation project, how to select offerings and options, how we can start doing the setups in the system. We'll just have a look. Any questions here, please? Any questions from anyone?
Yeah, hi Lakshman.
Please.
Yeah, actually, in real-time scenario, we may have business units in different locations or operating units in
No, no, no,
US.
no. Don't use that terminology. Don't mind. Don't mind. Don't use what
Mm.
we not yet discussed. You ask generic question, just some different countries are different. You just ask that. Accordingly, we can discuss.
So yeah, you mentioned like if we have if we are implementing for India and some other country, we
Hmm.
can define two projects.
Very
So
simple point.
usually,
For each country, you can have a separate implementation project, or for multiple countries, you can have single implementation project.
so if we create two projects for two countries, so it will be like two separate two instances like
No, 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 same. See,
mm,
there is one room. You have two doors. Okay, one is
okay.
left, the other one is right. What is the purpose to enter? To enter into that room, the doors we are going to use, for example. In the same way, instance is same. You want to do the setups, all the setups will be stored in the same instance. You may do the setups from one implementation project or from multiple implementation projects. Just we are using implementation project as our channel to do the setup. However, we are using the doors to enter into the room.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Instance is same. If those are multiple, definitely I have to give a note. Okay. When we are doing the implementation, we use already we discussed test and production. Initially, we start with the test. So within that, if you are doing the implementation for 10 countries, 10 implementation projects you can create in the same, and you can do the setups, or else you can create single implementation project, you can do the setups. It doesn't make any difference. Ultimately, we do all the setups in the same environment, in the same instance only. But if you have a country specific implementation projects, while we are doing the setups, it will be easy for us to complete certain setups without spending more time. How that is exactly we will see when we are doing the setups.
Uh, Actually, if we have two projects, so there might be some setups which will applicable as global level. So in that case, if we have two projects, how it will be like?
No issues. It may be global level or any level. You can do from one project or multiple projects. Or else initially you may do the setups for country wise. For India, one implementation, US one implementation project you may create. After some time, you may stop using the two implementation project. For two countries also, you can do the setups from single implementation project. That is just, it is providing the navigation, that's all. Implementation project will provide the navigation to do the setups, and what are the setups you are doing with the specific implementation project, those are not going to be reserved with that implementation project names. Okay, just it will give you the access to do the setups. You can see in the system so that you can understand. Okay, don't think on that much. You'll come to know how that is.
Hi Lakshman.
Yeah.
Do we have any profile option over here in this?
Yes, we have. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
we have profile options concept in the Fusion, but usage is very, very less. Okay, compared to EBS, usage is very, very less. We'll touch base that also. Very few profile options we use. Okay, but not mandatory. But for our understanding, I'll take you through. Without touching single profile option, also complete solution you can configure. But in EBS, it is not like that, right? You should use here without also you can. That's how we have.
Correct, correct.
Yes, we have profile options concept. The usage is drastically reduced. We'll go through that. Any
Okay.
other questions here, please? Okay, let's focus on these points. Whatever we are discussing, let's focus on that. Any questions on this, please? Any other questions? Definitely we will discuss. Maybe we can move those queries to end of the session. Any questions here to understand these points?
Lakshman, one more thing. When you're going to share the what we can say instance related details.
See, these are all we can discuss later. Please,
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
yeah,
Okay.
please don't mind. Yeah. Any questions on this, please? Okay. What are the content we are discussing on that? Any questions, please?
Yeah, hi Lakshman sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So whatever you have written there are, I mean, the steps enable offerings and create implementation. Or, so do they come under GL application or
No, no, no. Doesn't comes under any application. It all comes under FSM.
okay,
Okay. These are not related to any specific application. If these are belongs to any application, I should name it. Okay.
okay,
Yeah, this doesn't comes under any application. Okay, these are part of
okay,
FSM, Functional Setup Manager. That is the environment which allows us to do the setup.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's. Any questions here? Fine, no questions. Now what we'll do is In the last session, we created user, right? We assigned these two roles. With that help of that user, we'll go on to, we'll see how to enable the offerings and options, how to create implementation project, how to select, how we can do the setups, we'll go through. Okay, so this is the instance we used yesterday to create the user. What user we created? DLF. Provide password and sign in. Hope already you completed the same from your end. Okay, please try to complete once we're done with the session. Okay, so that things will become very easy for you. So we have seen how to create user, how to assign the roles. Now what we are going to see is how to enable the offerings and options. We will go and see that. Okay, how to enable offerings and options in the instance we'll see. So to enable offerings and options based on the scope of the implementation, whatever you are going to implement for a client, accordingly you have to enable the offerings and options. So click on username, select task called as setups and maintenance. If you click on setup and maintenance task, it will take us to FSM homepage. That's already we discussed in the last session and we have seen the same, right? Click on setup and maintenance task. Everything we call as a task. Just click on this task. Okay, just click on this task. Right. Now go to fine. So that we'll see later. Now we'll focus on the same point. Okay, we'll see how to enable the offerings and options. How we navigated to this page, we have to click on the user. We have to click on setup and maintenance task so that we will land in this page. We are here. Now you can see actions drop down. Click on that. Okay. Here select action called as go to offerings. Select go to offerings. It will take us to all the offerings whatever available within this instance. So these are the offerings. You can see this title. These are the different offerings. Now let's select financials offering. We want to implement financials. Click on financials offering. Okay. You click on financials offering. You can see within the financial offering what we have. The financials offering includes assets. Assets means fixed assets application. Ledger means general ledger application. Cash means cash management application. Invoices and payments means payables application. Accounts receivable means account receivables only. Collections is separate application. And some sub-ledger accounting to create accounting entries under tax. So this is how we have a different solutions as a part of financials which falls under applications. Okay, the description they are providing. You could see the status as enabled because this is instance we are using for practice purpose. This instance we are using for training, or you can say it is demo instance. Since this is a demo instance, already Oracle enabled this financials offering. If it is a fresh instance, you can see the status as a not enabled. Okay, when you see this status as not enabled, what you have to do is you have to click on opt-in features. Click on opt-in features. You have to click on opt-in features. From that tab, you will be able to enable financials. Within the financials, what are the other options we want to enable? We can enable it. This is a one-time task. For every instance, one time we have to do it. Okay, it would be applicable for entire instance. This is instance level setup. This is not user specific setup. It is for entire instance. Okay. So already enabled. Okay, this is already enabled. That is the reason you can see all these are enabled. In case of fresh instance, this you can find as a disabled. Okay, this you will find as a disabled. We have to come to this page and we have to enable. So that's how you can create implementation project and you can select this financials offering into that implementation project. So the system will allow us to do the setups. We just I'm disabling for our understanding purpose. Okay, so already enabled in this instance. Generally, the fresh instance you don't see as enabled. As a consultant, we have to go into enable. How to enable? Just we have seen the navigation and we have to be in this page to enable. We have to click on enable to enable it. So this is already enabled. Just we are disabling to discuss and understand few points. I'm just disabling all whatever enabled here already. To say done. Wait for a second. Done. Disabled. Now we can go through how this can be enabled. Okay. We don't do other things like this. Just this is a instance specific setup. So no other option. This is how we have to try. Okay. So how to enable the offerings? We have to click on username, click on setup and maintenance. And here you can say actions. Click on go to offerings and select which offering you want to enable. Financials. What is the status of financials? Not enabled. You have to click on opt-in features. Okay. Now, so you are going to implement financials for your client. Okay, financials for your client, you can enable financials. So within the financials, we have these different applications. Within the financials, by default, you will get general ledger application. Okay, without general ledger application, no finance solution. So directly we will get it. If you want to implement supplier invoice processing, we have to enable it. Supplier invoice processing, we have to enable it. Nothing but payables application. If you want to implement expense application, okay, that is a fusion expense. In EBS we call as I expense, the same we call as a fusion expense, you can enable. It was enabled earlier, we disabled, that is the reason it is displaying like this. Okay, otherwise this all system will disable, enable. All will be blank, we can enable. Since it was enabled and we disabled to discuss and understand, once we enable financials, it is enabling other options also automatically. Okay, here you can finalize. Okay, you want to implement payables. Payables means supplier invoice processing. You have to enable the checkbox. Within the payables, we have suppliers, payables invoice process, payments process, and cash management, bank accounts related functionalities. The same way you have to enable whether you are going to implement expense application or not, fixed assets application or not. Customer invoice processing is nothing but receivables application. You want to enable, you want to implement or not. So you are implementing, enable it. The revenue management application you want to implement or not. Okay. The same way intercompany process you want to enable or not. Budget concept you want to implement or not. This is how. So whatever we are going to implement, you can enable. So what you can do is ideally like when we are going to enable this, or you can enable all this. Whatever you require, you can implement. Nothing will go wrong. Okay. So here you can enable. So the US federal financials means if you are implementing for local governments in US, you can go with that. Not required. So whatever is required and applicable, those you can enable. So here you can see these are the primary we already enabled. So within the financials, first we have to enable the financial offering. So within the financial offering, what are the options we have? We can enable financials. We enable Automatically we get general ledger application within the financials, and we have to enable supplier invoice processing for payables application. Rest within the payables, what we have all will be defaulted as a selected, and expense application, if you want to implement, enable it. The same way fixed assets application and customer invoice processing and cash management application, you don't need to enable. If you enable payables, you will get cash management. If not payables, if you enable receivables, customer invoice processing is nothing but receivables, will get cash management application. This is how. Okay. So this is how you can enable whatever you see here. Okay. Once you expand, once you enter into financials, whatever you could see, all you can enable. Nothing will go wrong. System will allow us to do the setups. If required, we can do. Otherwise, we can ignore. So this is how you have to enable, and we have futures related section. Okay, column here, but nothing to do with this. By default, all system only will enable the futures also. You don't need to enable. With all any specific business requirement you have or you are going to implement, if that is applicable, then you have to enable. Okay. So I'm selecting financials. Against financials, I'm going to click on futures. Click on futures. Just click on futures. Here you can see almost all are enabled. Okay. That's what Oracle is doing. If anything you think like, so for that country where you are doing the implementation, for that client as per the business process, if any tax related or other information need to be enabled, you can enable. By default, nothing is required. So you don't need to change anything. So mostly there are some check boxes where SCM, supply chain management, and all relevant functionality we enable. For financial side, ideally not required. Okay. So just you can, just we are checking that all. With this, you don't need to do anything as of now. Okay, this is how just you have to enable the offerings and options. You can just click on done. The same way you are going to implement procurement also for your client, for example. You want to implement procurement also for your client. Then you have to enable procurement also. You're going to select procurement. Here you can see procurement is already enabled, but just let's have a look. Click on opt-in features. Just click on opt-in features. It will list out the procurement offering within the offering options. So procurement is already enabled within the procurement. Purchasing is one application. Self-service procurement is another application. Okay, and supplier invoice processing, payables also they included in the procurement, and cash management we have as a part of that, and the supplier portal is separate application, sourcing is separate application, procurement contracts is separate application. Okay, this is how primarily we have procurement, purchasing application, self-service procurement application, and finance. This payables is part of finance, and here supplier portal sourcing. These applications are part of procurement. Okay, purchasing is part of procurement. So that's how we have. As a procurement solution, what are the applications we are going to implement? Accordingly, we have to enable this. Okay, when we are in the project, we'll come to know what exactly we are going to implement, which offerings, which options we are going to implement. We everything will have a information, will have a just communication, meetings. So that's how we'll come to know, and accordingly you can set up. So here what we have to do is we have to understand how to enable offerings and options, what is the navigation, where we can do that. That's what our target here. Again, I'm selecting financials offering. You can see it's enabled. Okay, if you expand this related document, you can see few documents. What are the different features are available in the financials? If you want to implement financials, what setups you have to complete, and some business objects and enterprise application. These two are nothing. These you can have a look, but not required. Okay, when you're practicing, you can download these documents and you can see, but it would be so early to see that documents also. Not required, you can have a look. Okay, just you can download this document. Associated features within the financials, what are the key features are available, very high level they are providing. You can just click on PDF format or HTML or Excel, you can download and you can go through. Okay, that information is not required for us now. That is the reason I'm not touching. When you're practicing, if you want to have a look, you can download and you can see what information they are giving. Okay, that this is what we have to understand, how to enable offerings and options. So done. Once we enable required offerings and options, in case of fresh instance, you have to enable offerings and options. If it is a demo instance or training instance, you don't need to do it. Now, when you use this instance already enabled, you don't need to enable. Just you can take the navigation, you can have a look, because this is instance level setup. For instance level, we do this setup, it will be applicable for all. Not only for one country, all countries also is applicable. For how many countries we are going to use this single instance, for all those countries, this is applicable. Now the second point is create implementation project. Okay, create implementation project. Let's see how to create implementation project. It's very simple process. So here we can create implementation project and we can select the offerings. That is one option we have. Otherwise, during the implementation project itself, you can select the offerings and you can create the project. We'll see, we'll test both. So, how to create the implementation project? Already discussed one point here. How many implementation projects we have to create? Ideally, one for one country. For two countries also, you can create one implementation project. For two countries, you can do the setups in the same implementation project. The information will be saved separately. Even project is one. Information, whatever the setups we are doing for India, whatever the setups we are doing for US, those will be saved separately as separate records. But the user interface, the entry, create the setups, the environment we are using a single project only. Else you can create two separate projects. One is India implementation project. So all India setups you can do from that implementation project. US implementation project, all US related setups you can do from that project. So you can have one or multiple, but reality what we do is we create single implementation project for specific country and we do all the setups. Now we'll see how to create implementation project. It's very easy. So from where we can create implementation project, you have to click on this task list. This we call as a task list. You can see as a notepad icon. Okay, because this will contain multiple tasks. That is the reason we can call it as a task list or a task pan. Tasks. These are our tasks. From this only you can create implementation project. We know how to navigate to this page, right? How to come to this page. You have to click on username, select setup and maintenance task. Select setup and maintenance task. We are in this page. Directly you can click on this task list. Click on manage implementation projects. So when you work for your client, you will create single implementation project if you are going to implement for only one country. But in this instance, you see how many implementation projects are there. Okay, many are there. How? We are using this instance for practice purpose. Okay. So everybody is creating implementation projects here. That is the reason we have a big list. Reality, when you do the implementation, okay, when you work for a client, so when we are working for a client, it would be like this, blank. No implementation project you will find here. Whatever you create, that would be the first implementation project. If you are doing the implementation for one country, one implementation project is enough. Okay, this is how you can find the blank page. I just searched with the dot, the result is 0. So that is the reason I am able to see the screen is empty without any projects. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to create implementation project. What is the navigation? Click on username, select task called as setup and maintenance. Then click on this task list and click on manage implementation projects. Okay, click on manage implementation projects. From this page, we can create the implementation projects. You can create a number of, but reality how many we require, one is enough for one country. For multiple countries also, with one you will be able to do the setups. For easy identification purpose, the team who are working for US, for them just we can have one project. The team who are working for India, we can have a separate project, so that they will do the setups in that project, will do the setups, whatever the project is allocated for you. But all the setups will be stored in the same instance, but those will be saved separately country wise. Even implementation project is one or multi. Okay. So this is all just we have to navigate to create new implementation project. Click on create icon. If you click on create, it will open the page to create the new implementation project. Just click on create. So by default, it is taking the name implementation project 23 and all. Okay, it's a default name. You can change this name. So I want to give the name as BLF. Okay, BLF implementation project. Automatically, the same name it is taking as a code, and the same it is taking as the description. Its name it is taking as a code as well as a description. And what is the status of the project? Not yet started. Means we not yet started doing the setups. Not started. And who is creating this implementation project? Automatically the project will get assigned to the same user. Now we are creating this implementation project from this DLF user. That is the reason the system is assigning that project to DLF user only. And what is the start date and the finish date? Here, what is the meaning of the project? So when you say project, don't think about the project life cycle or execution management, etc. Here, the system, whatever the project we create, this is for the purpose of doing the setups only, not for entire cycle of the project, just setups. That means here you have to specify how many days time, how much time you are going to take to complete the setups that you have to set here. Say we want to complete the setups by next month 10th. Okay, we want to complete the setups by next month 10th. In 10 days or say 11 days we want to complete the setups. So that's how you can give the tentative schedules. After this 10th also system will allow you to do the setup. Okay, this is just for information purpose. It doesn't have any control. Okay, so we are just system is defaulting the name. You can modify or you can rewrite the name. The same it will copy as a code and description. So the current status of this implementation project is not started. Automatically system is assigning this implementation project to the current user, from which user we are creating this project, and the tentative start and finish dates we have. Okay, start date and the finish date, these details we have. Right, now you can say save and open project. You can click on save and open project. You can try both. Just click on save and open project. So click on save and implementation path, application results and log files. Unable to extend table. Space, okay. I think in this environment, Seems to be have some issue. Okay, but in that instance, seems to there is some issue with that. Now we'll create the implementation project in this instance. Again, same process. Click on create. Here you can give the name as DLF. Okay. Now in this instance, we are using the user called as Amex. To the same user, this project system is assigning. And the start date is this. And what should be the finish date? Maybe by 10th, we want to complete the setup. Now you can say save and open project. Now system will create this project, and what are the offerings you want to add into this, you can add directly. Okay, project is created. You can see the basic information here. Project name, project code, project status, not started, assigned to Amex, start date and finish date. Now we want to implement financials. You can click on add. Click on add. What you want to implement for this client? Financials. Here you can search for financials. Search for financials. Here is displaying the offering name called as financials. You can select and say apply. Okay. You can say apply. So within the financials, what are the applications we have? For all those applications, what are the setups we have to complete? For all those setups, it will create the tasks. Task is nothing but one specific setup name here. Okay, it will list out all the setups for financials. Okay, select and click on apply. For entire financials, it will create the setups. In the background, you can see financials is added. Now you can click on done. So now you can expand these financials. You will have all the options. Okay. Invoice and then payment means payables. Expense means expense application. Fixed assets application. Receivables application. Revenue, cash management, collections. Different application. If you want to implement any application, what setups you have to do, you can see all those. Here you can expand, define invoicing and payment configuration. You will see what setups you have to do. So this is how you can find the setups in this. We have some time to discuss and to work on it. For now, just try to understand how to add the offering into project after creating the project. Now we'll create one more project. Okay, we'll go and create one more project. Click on create. I want to give the name as XYZ. Okay, the finish date is not mandatory. If you want to give, you can provide, otherwise leave it. Now, during the project, you want to select the offerings, required options. Then what you can do is you can click on next. Click on next. It will display all the offerings and options which are already enabled in this instance. Okay. So only enabled offerings and options it will display. Here it is showing all the offerings which are already enabled. Now, into our project, which offerings and options you want to include, we have to include. Say we want to implement financials, you can include. When you select financials, within the financials, what we have system is listing out. So within the financials, we want to include, to implement payables, expense, fixed assets, customer invoice processing means receivables, collections application, revenue management, intercompany budgeting, some analytics for data analysis purpose. Okay, different applications data we require for analysis, BA, business intelligence analysis purpose. This is how you can set up. The same way, if you want to include procurement also, you can include. So you are going to implement procurement also. Means you have a team, like you have a procurement consultant also to implement procurement. So you can select procurement. Within the procurement, which options required? Purchasing. Within the purchasing, again, self-service procurement option and supplier portal and sourcing. This is how from each offering, what offerings we are going to implement. Again, within the offering, which options we are going to implement, you have to select. After selection in the sense, you have to include. Then you can say save and open project. Now this project will be created including the finance and the procurement offerings. Otherwise, you can just directly you can say save and open. It will create empty project. Within that you can add. Okay, you can add offerings. So that's how you can keep project up. So just wait for a second. It takes time to generate. As for financials and procurement, for different applications, it has to list out all the setup in the folder. It takes some time. Let's wait. So it has to create multiple tasks. Okay, for each setup, it has to create one separate task. But that it takes time because we selected financials and procurement. Now you can see project is created with a given name. This is the name we given. XYZ implementation project. This is what we given. Within that, you can see financials and the procurement offerings. If you expand financials, the finance related options you can see. Okay, invoice and payment means payables. To implement payables, these are all setups we have to do. All the setup list is available in this folder. To implement expense application, this is the folder we have to use. All setups are there in this. Same way fixed assets, receivables, etc. etc. And procurement also we selected into our project. So all procurement setups you can do in our project with the help of procurement offering. You can expand within that. Which applications you can implement, you can see. Okay, so this is how you can create the implementation projects. So we create an implementation project called as DLF. That how we created later we added. Okay, any point of time you can add offerings into this project. I want to add procurement also here. Click on add procurement. Search for procurement. Select apply. Okay, procurement. Click on done. So we added. At any point of time you can delete also. So this is how you can create implementation project. Which offerings and options setups you want to do, accordingly you have to add those into project. So if you expand financials, you can see different options. Define invoicing and payments configuration means payables. So you want to add payables into this project, already it is there, but just say you want to add it. Click on search. Okay, I don't want to add offering, I want to add option. So select task list. For payables, what is the name? Define invoicing and the payment configuration. This is what. Okay, define invoicing and the payment configuration means payables. You can add payables into my project, only payables. Already that is there within the financials, but just I want to add like this. This I want to delete. I want to add separately payables, okay, receivables, assets, and all of that. That's how one by one I can add into our project. Or else simply if you add the offering called as financials, everything will be added into this project. Or else I can add specific setup also. Okay, one specific setup also I can add into this project. So I'm removing this. Okay, here select offering. That's for financials. Select apply. Wait for a second, it has to create all the setups. Setups means setup list. Yeah. The background you can see. Click on done. Okay. So this is all just you can create implementation project and you can add offerings and options into your project. After that you can do the setup. Okay. Here we have two projects what all we created, DLF and XYZ implementation. Just go into DLF implementation project. Okay. So here I want to set the status. Say we started working on this setups. Then we can update the status. Okay. In the basic information section, click on edit. Click on edit and you can set the status. What is the status of our project? Just now we started working on it. So you can say in progress. We are working on this project. If you want to change the assignment, you can change. One project can be assigned to only one user, but multiple team members can work on the same project. This is just for information. If you want to change the name, you can change. If you want to change the description, you can change. But code you cannot change. That is freezed. You cannot update it. And anything, start date, finish date, everything you can change. Only what you cannot change, project code. Whatever you given for the first time, that you cannot modify. Okay, we updated status as in progress. That means we started working on this project. Status is in process, in progress. Now say we have financials. If we expand financials within that, we have different applications. Okay. Define invoicing and payment configuration means payables application. So I want to assign these payables applications to one resource to complete the setup. You can select the payables, define invoicing and payment configuration means payables application. I want one person to complete the setup and multiple people. I can select this, click on assign tasks. Whom I want to assign, I can select that user here. Click on add. I just want to search with the user with the name. Okay. I want to assign to ABC user. means ABC consultant. Done. Say apply and done. Okay. So ABC user is assigned. And by which date this user has to complete the setup. So click on this field. So by first, the user should complete AP setups. So save. So this is how we can assign. Okay, this is how we can assign the specific option. Okay, so payables option we are assigning to the specific user. So you can expand this. You can expand. Please go on to this place. So now here you can see these all setups need to be completed by ABC. It is showing as assigned to. What is the due date to complete? First, next month first. So this is how we can assign specific option to specific team member, or else entire financials also you can assign. Select entire financials, click on assign tasks, whom you want to assign entire financials to complete the setups. Select any one of the users here. Okay. And username you can select as a say apply, done. And entire financial setups need to be completed by which date? So maybe by 7th. So save approach. So this is how you can assign entire financials to one resource, or within the financials specific option, or you can call it a task list also. Okay, this is a payable related task list. It contains multiple tasks. Okay, or else very specific task also you can assign. Okay, here you can expand this, expand. So here it is showing entire financials is assigned to one person, and this payables is assigned to another person. Two names it is showing, ABC, and here one more. One more, who is that? Ajay. It is showing like that. Okay. So this is how just you can assign. And again, say for example, you assign payables to one consultant. This is payable related, right? So this payable you assign. Now the person is started working. The person can update the status against this option. By default is not started. Say the person started working on the setups. You can set in progress. Maybe after some time the user completed setup. So in that case, you can set the status as a completed. Just save and close. And say fixed asset setups we started doing, for example. You can set the status as in progress. Just save and close. This is how we can set the status or the progress. Okay, accordingly you can set the status and you can do the assignments. If you do all this, what is the use? Okay, if you do all this, what is the use you will see. So we did all this, right? What is the project name? DLF. Click on done. Done. Now just you can go back to the same page. Right? Username, click on setup and maintenance. Go to task list. Click on implementation project. Here click on overview. How many projects are assigned to this user? All it will list out. Okay, all it will list out. Now we are talking about DLF. Select DLF implementation project. Now it is showing the progress of the project. Okay. So 20% setups are completed. We updated status as a completed for payables. 4% in progress. For fixed assets, we set the status as in progress. And 76% of setups are not started. Okay, here assignment status. You can see the next week these many setups need to be completed. Those are not started. Next week what need to be completed? Out of those 116 setups are completed and 46 are in progress. Okay. So if you click on that, it will show what are those also. If I click on this completed, I can see what completed exactly. Okay, just click on that, same it will list out. These are all completed. That's how we updated. We already did complete for our discussion purpose. Did like that. Okay. So 20% setups are complete. What are those? If you want to see, you can click on that. Or else 4% setups are in progress. Click on that. It will show what are those 4% of setups in progress. You can see here. Okay. This is how just you can check. So by doing this, setting the status on assignments, you can just go see here assignments. Go to assignment status by task list. Select this tab. Wait for a second. It will fetch the details. So still it's fetching. Let me try with other tab. One second. Okay, now you can select assignment status by task list. You can just select it. Just wait for a second, it will fetch the data. Okay, the assignment status like whom we assigned, what is the status like in progress. In the same way, you can find the resource status also. How many resources are working for this project? Who has to complete what? How many are completed? How many are in progress? How many are not started with that resource? So that's how you can find the details. Okay. This loading is taking time for this tab. Okay. So that's how you'll be able to track the progress of the project. Okay. You will be able to track the progress of the project. So this is what you have to understand. Setup and all will see that we have time for that. Now these are the points you have to understand. When you get access to any fresh instance, you can create your own user. With that user, you can start doing the setups. First, we have to enable offerings and options, and then you can create implementation project. When you create implementation project, you can select offerings and options. Okay. So after creating implementation project, you can add offerings and options into the project, and you can update the status. Okay, you can update the status, and if required, you can do the assignments. Updating the status and assigning that specific task list or offering or options to resource is completely optional. Okay, it's not mandatory. You have to update the status. It is not mandatory. You have to assign to resource what they have to do. Just implementation project, how to create, just we have to understand primarily here in every project, in every implementation, what we do to do the setups, we create implementation project. Without creating implementation project, also you can do the setup. That also we'll discuss very soon. But now these are the points we have to understand. Any questions on this, please?
Yes.
Please.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So the percentage of completion when we create the project, is it automatically updated, or the person to whom it is assigned, that person has to update the status with the percentage of completion?
Automatically no. See, I may complete one setup. By using one setup, I may create one record, but my requirement may be creating 10 records. System cannot understand how many records we want to create. That is the reason there is no automation. Okay, we have to update the status. That system will count. System will
Okay.
take for that status update. Manual.
Okay, got it. And if we have two countries implementation, and if we have two implementation projects, then I'm just trying to understand what is the difference between having one implementation project and two implementation project. And now it has given us a very good idea when you have walked us through with the when you created the implementation project. Uh,
Yeah, correct. So here, see, if you take this XYZ for one country, DLF for other country, so what is the difference? For XYZ, say for US, DLF for India. India setups, if I want to do, I want to enter into this. Then only I can do the setup. Again, if I want to do US setups, I have to go to that project, I have to do within this. That's how we have to switch from one to other. If I have single project, everything I can do from the same project. So
Or in other terms, can we put it this way? Let us suppose there are resources A, B, and C who are assigned to X, Y, Z for one country,
yeah.
and there are resources D, E, F for other country who are associated to DLF. Then it makes sense to have two implementation projects. And if the same resources are going to be engaged for both the projects, then it doesn't make sense to have two different projects.
Yes.
Does it?
That you can take as a valid point, correct.
Okay, thank you, Lakshman.
Yeah, thanks. Now it is displaying, see here, assignment status. Okay, assignment status. It is showing how that assignments we have. Okay, here you can see the blue color indicates not started. This, not started. In progress. These are in progress. Completed. These are complete. In the same way, resource status. Okay, so you can see here. So Ajay, okay, this resource, the next week, this Ajay need to complete 914 tasks. Okay, here you see this week, ABC has to complete these many. Say next week, who has to complete how many setups? So next week, Ajay has to complete 680, 8, and out of that, already 116 are completed, 146 in progress. Remaining 868 are not started. This is how you can see. So resource wise, how the resources are working, how, so you can set it up on this. Okay. Just you can set none, like if you don't want to see.
Hi, Lakshman.
All about just information, like assignment details also you can see here. So for which task who is assigned, you can see all the details here. So this is how like you can use, but this assignments and updating the status is not mandatory. If you want to track, you can track. This is how you can do that. Please go on mute, please. Okay, this is how you'll be able to track.
Yeah, Lakshman.
Yeah.
Lakshman, one question over here. If we are assigning one task to other user, suppose, and we are entering the due date, completion date. So if we bypass that date, means from that, if we complete that date, so from next day, user will not have means access to that task.
Yeah. Here we are assigning one entire offering or option or particular task set up to one user. That is just for information. We are setting the status. That is also for information. We are giving the due date. That is also just for information. Nothing has control. Okay. You may give a date, due date as a tomorrow date. If you complete, it will show on so and so date is complete as per due date. Due date is today. After 2 days, it will show 2 days is overdue. That's all. I assigned payables to Mr. X. Somebody can see the project, they can understand Mr. X is going to complete payable setups. But why can start doing the setups? System won't stop. System won't verify who is doing the setups. So these are all for information purpose. Okay, no controls we have on.
Okay, got it.
Yep. Even project also. You can give the project finish date as a next month 10th. You'll be able to do the setups after 10th also. That is just for information. That's all.
Lakshman,
Yeah.
one thing. Suppose if we have
Can
only
you
one
be
project,
loud?
suppose if we have only one project, but we have two countries, India and US, for example.
Yes.
So for India, we have, for example, FA, but US we don't have FA. So in that case,
You do the
how
setups
to?
accordingly. Project may be one. One project will support for multiple country setups also. Do setups accordingly.
I mean, options actually, we are going, once a project is defined, we have selected the options, right? So, India, I want to select assets, but US, I don't have assets. But when we select asset option, so it will show for both, right?
No. That is, see, some setups are instance specific. You just, it's not like country and all. That is there everywhere. Okay. That is not applicable for your example. What you are saying. See, in EBS, we will create one responsibility or 100 responsibilities. If you go to that page, that remain as is. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's it. Don't take as example. Take something as an example, we can discuss. You can understand.
Lakshman, just to add on, reporting perspective, if a US person is running some report, and India user is also running report with the same, we have both the configuration of different countries in one project. So will it impact someone means something?
No. See, you are doing the setup for two countries. Two countries, you are doing the implementation with the help of an implementation project only. But through that project, you do US setups for as per US requirement, India setups as per India requirement. And again, you will give the access for India users whatever the data they need access. For US people, US data only you will give access. For that, we have a separate roles. That's a different setup. Okay. This is just
Okay, understood.
implementation project. To do implementation like generally one time. When it comes to users, daily base. Who need access to what we have to provide. That's a different story. Okay.
Hi, Lakshman. Like, can we directly select options, right, without selecting offerings?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, and one more thing regarding the yesterday session, like we have talked about SaaS, PaaS user, and IaaS user. So in the URL, whatever you are showing, like we are able to see in the URL SaaS. So can we understand the thing like based on the URL, is it a SaaS user or PaaS user, or do we have another mechanism to understand what kind of user we are using?
You don't understand that by seeing URL. Okay. When we
In the URL, whatever you show on the first page.
No. When we go to that instance, if you assign some additional rows related to some technical, those will allow the technical people to have access to that platform, which will allow them to do the setups. Again, they'll install some tools and all to create that pages, etc. By seeing instance, you cannot understand. You don't find based on the URL.
In the URL, we are able to see SaaS. That's why I have a question.
No. That is just for just they included reality when you get the instance for client and all. They don't include different naming conventions they are providing for practice instances. Okay, that don't count.
Acha,
okay, but reality they don't include like that.
And one more thing, like in the setup and configuration.
No. If they include, you can, but ideally they don't include. Okay. You may ask, I will include as in my instance URL. Yes, they can do that. It's matter of DBA name selection. So.
Yeah, and one more question regarding the when like we are doing enable and disable, right, and the setup configuration tool. So do we have any kind of audits like the actions what we are doing?
No, I didn't get you. What is that?
No, we are enabling and disabling. We are selecting the options and we are deselecting the options, right?
Oh.
So do we have audits for these kind of actions?
Yes. See here. When
audits.
You get instance, I'll talk on that. So when you get instance, say you got all these offerings, but you are paying, you subscribed only financials and procurement. Okay, financials and procurement. But you enable this additional also. So these instances are managed by Oracle. Okay, so that they do the audit and they'll identify. If you use anything where you are not subscribed, there will be penalty for that. Audit will be there from Oracle side. Okay.
No, audit in the sense, in my terminology, like see someone enabled the status, change the status to in process to complete it. So trace the audit. That's part I'm on.
That doesn't impact anything. That is reason there is nothing like that. Say for example, I'll enable financials. I'll go and create implementation project. You may go and disable financials. No issues. Already enabled and I selected into my project. Even if you disable, I'll be able to use financials. So if you are going to disable, it is not going to impact anywhere. If you disable, it won't be available when you create new project. That is the reason there is no impact on existing setups or any information. That is the reason there is no audit for that. Okay, but that information will be stored. Latest update, who did that, and all that would be saved in the who columns. Tables, there are some separate tables there that information will be stored.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And one last question regarding the status from not started to in progress to completed. So we have three different status in the graph page, pie chart page. We are able to see submitted when that status will get updated.
Yes. Yeah, whenever you update the status against the project, that system will capture here. That's it. manually how to update, it will take it.
In the drop downs, whatever you have shown there, we have the submitted status.
Yes. There within the project. Okay, here we are updating the status here. Click on this status icon, update as in progress. It will reflect there. Or else you can update the status for entire financials. I'm selecting entire financials. I'm updating the status as completed. Okay, for entire financials, I'm selecting the status as complete. Here, whatever we update, the same will be displayed in that progress page. So for everything is updated as a completed. Now you can go to page.
Completed and submitted is different.
Sorry?
Completed status and submitted status both are different or same?
Where you have submitted?
If you come down, little bit down on the graph.
Graph over.
On the graph. Just come little bit down, like here you are able to see
It is not at all
submitted.
See, mostly it is not applicable. So here it is not mostly not applicable. Even you can see in this, you don't see that something as project level you don't see. Okay, submitted where it is applicable is there will be some jobs, programs. Okay, you may just submit that. It may take some time. You may mark the status if it is applicable that for that task as a submitted. Otherwise, ideally that is not applicable for setups. Okay, some programs, jobs and all. See here, nowhere you see. And again, why they given this here? That could be for the purpose of you can copy these setups and you can move to other instance also. Okay, in those aspects they might be used. We have seen it. Nowhere it is there and submitted. But ideally you can consider that point for certain programs. When you are copying these setups to move to other instance, it could be in that context they might have given that. Ideally directly nowhere you will see that. Yep.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So these are the points we have to understand how to create the project. Okay. So
Sir, one question, sorry.
yep.
As a company has a business in 4 different countries, example. So in this project implementation plan has to create on the company level or 4 different countries level?
Country wise you can create. Country wise. So to complete, when you are doing the implementation, you are going to do the implementation for each country. Okay, how many businesses you have in that country, that is secondary. You are doing the implementation for each country. So country specific implementation projects you can create. So that will help you a lot to save your time. How exactly you will understand once we start doing the setups. Even with for 4 countries, you can create single project and you can do the setups. But you have to that will just consume a lot of time when you are doing the setup. So you have to switch from one country setup to another country setup. If you are in the same country specific project, you don't need to switch. Okay, within that you will be able to continue doing the setups. Switching is not required.
Okay.
That's how you can say.
Okay, it will be applicable for all countries. The
Yeah,
same setup will be applicable.
Yeah, country wise you can.
Here, Lakshman, one question, please.
Yeah.
So create implementation project, is it a mandatory step, or even without create implementation project we can
I just given that note also. Without implementation project also you can do the setups. How to do? First we'll see with implementation project how to do the setups. Once we're done with that, I'll show without implementation project also how we can do the setups. I'll take you through. Not mandatory, but in every implementation, we create implementation project to do the setups. That will simplify, okay, the setup process. And if you have implementation project, the big advantage is if you want to move the setups from one instance to another instance, implementation project is required. Say without implementation project, you completed setups. Those all setups you want to move to other instance. Not possible. So that is the reason implementation project we ideally create. So while we are doing this setups, it will be useful. When you want to move the setups from one instance to another instance, yes, that will help us. Yeah.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
So one point here, we're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back. Okay. So just we're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back, or else no discussions now. Now you can go ahead with your questions. Any questions from anyone, please?
Sir, Lakshman sir, in general, simple question. In general, like in real-time scenarios, what kind of names we can use for this as implementation project names?
The same will we provide. Like if you are implementing for DLF, simply you write as a DLF implementation. Say the client has operations in 4 countries. At a time, you are doing the implementation for 2 countries. For each country, DLF India, DLF US. This is how we provide the naming convention. Because when you do the implementation, that includes multiple offerings and options. You don't need to write finance or SCM, etc. Simply we'll give the name as so company name and implementation project. The same naming convention we use. Yeah. Any other questions?
Lakshman, when we can start practicing into the instance?
Practicing you can start by this time because we had a session yesterday, right, with the user creation and all. Okay, that you can follow like to do the practice.
But instant details in instance
You can keep in touch with the team. Okay, might be in touch with somebody from the team, right? So you can talk to them. They will help you to get the instance details.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.